lovely people. Today we are here because I'm going to do something I don't normally do. So normally I'm not one to go and read through the producers' letters and things like that. But with the new developers, I have seen that there has been a producer's letter released and I am curious. So we are going to read through it together, suss out exactly what's going on. To the best of our ability. So let's read through it together. Greetings, fellow heroes and villains. I wanted to take a moment and introduce myself. My name is Andre Emerson, executive producer of DC Universe Online, and I have been developing games for the past 30 years. You've not heard from me until now, but only because I've been immersed in DCUO for the past several months, logging countless hours across multiple characters. I'm sure some of us have grouped together. As gamers, it's been critically important for me and our new or newer team members to experience the depth and breadth of the game as players before developers. I will say I do find that to be quite a smart move. I think playing the game without anyone knowing who you are is a good way to get an idea of what the fan base is like and how the game plays, how people are when they're on the game. So smart. I appreciate that is something, if true, that they put effort into, because you're not going to get a good perspective if you come into it only from the developer's side and don't play the game yourself or listen to anybody who plays it. And this doesn't necessarily mean that they're listening to the people who love this game. It just does mean that they've got the perspective from a gamer rather than perspective of just the developers. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Andre. Before we jump into what's to come for DCUO, I'd like to take a moment to recap on the year's events and some of the newer additions that have made it into the game. Outside of the annual events you may be accustomed to, we've had a blast exploring and introducing new elements to the game, starting with the Year of the Dragon, all new art direction in Harley Quinn vs. Apocalypse. Was there an all new art direction? I mean, the artwork for it was like the picture of Harley like leaning up against the brick wall and things seems to be very similar to the style they've had up until this point, although I will say it seemed like the shot was further away and a little more detailed, so maybe that's what they're referring to, because if they're referring to the actual gameplay design, those characters look very, very similar to everything in game, and also were poorly executed because there's still clipping in there, and it's clipping that they don't plan to fix. So Harley's stomach disappears in the cutscene, her hammer is through her wrist, so rather than it being in her hand, it's through her wrist and through her shoulder. So things are not boding well in that regard. So I'm curious what exactly they are referring to about the new art direction. I'm going to just assume that it is that promotion piece where they had the image of Harley leaning on the brick wall. I could be wrong. The availability of DCUO on next-gen consoles. So have they, I'm guessing that means that they made this available on the newer Xbox? I'm not sure, because the PS5 release was with the old devs, was it not?
You are indeed correct. This means that DCUO has fully immersed itself into the 9th generation of world consoles, thanks to Xbox Series XS. No matter if you have the Series X or went more compact with the Series S, both are serious hardware and performance upgrades that will elevate your gameplay experience. Did that make sense? I don't know, but they released DCUO on the Xbox Series XS.
Thank you, Future Laura. So I guess that is probably what they're referencing there. And the Outsider Ops, I will say interesting, because the Outsiders Ops, I keep saying Outsider Ops, Outsiders Ops, is something that I appreciated the gameplay for, but I did not appreciate that along with it came the ability to purchase those things, that it wasn't something that only the gameplay would permit, because it was nice to be playing through older content that I don't really get to play very much, especially in sequence like that. Even if you're doing Omnibus, tends to be random, so I did enjoy the gameplay of those particular load-ins that they had. But it was essentially, it was pay for stat points, which I did do, but I did it for videos. So I didn't do it on my Switch, for example. I didn't do it there. I just played through as much as I could, and I couldn't get through very much because the Switch is very, very laggy. And it seems like the currency, like they say the Outsider Ops, but the newest things that they have had release that aren't typical for the game, like the Outsiders Ops, and also I could say for the Batman event, for example, Batman Day, we had, and Wonder Woman Day, the currency was restricted. So the currency for the Outsiders Ops and for those two events were 2024 only. They specifically said that you could only use it until the end of the event, and then that would be the end of it. I will say, even though they said that they did give people the opportunity to make purchases with that currency after the event had concluded, but it was for only things that were not event relevant. So like source marks, for example, instead of actual pieces from that specific event. So I appreciate that they allowed that afterwards, but I just personally dislike that they're putting a level on that currency, that they're saying you can only use it this year, so you better run that content now. So, and that it won't stack. Because people could plan to and be like, I'm going to do that, no problem. They get through a bunch, something in life happens, and then all of the effort they've just put in leads to not the thing they were aiming for, because they're suddenly not able to use that again. I dislike that. I don't think that that's a smart move, but I mean, it guarantees that people are more likely to purchase that currency, though, doesn't it? So it seems cash grab. I will say they seem to be on the side of let's make as much money as we can, which I like. It's a business, I get that, but don't make everything about that, and don't sell stat points, don't sell CR ratings, because it's becoming pay to win, and I dislike that very much. Let's not forget some of the many quality of life improvements that have made a big impact on our daily gaming experience. I do like the change in the marketplace. I think that's much simpler, easier to see what I've purchased, easier to access. I like the categories, I like that. I also have noticed that some items that didn't previously stack in large quantities now stack in large quantities, saves us some space. I'm not sure what other quality of life things there are. I'm sure there are others, but none of them are coming to mind for me at the moment. I do appreciate those. I think they're good. Big impact on daily gaming, starting with a message of the day feature and a revamped login messenger banner. So these are on every console except, when I last checked, the Switch did not have this banner. As far as I can remember, the banner is missing from the Switch at the moment.
There is a very insistent bird who appears to want to be recorded. But that is correct. I have just logged into my Switch after reset to double check. The banner does not pop up.
Oh, another one that I remember is they now have, so if you go into your menu here and go to the map, you can warp and it will take you to wherever there isn't one at the moment, of course. We've got the event for Season's Greetings. Now when there is a focus on something, like when we have just done Sins for Black Adam, they will put it here so you can warp to the correct world or the correct episode in order to complete whatever they're doing a highlight on, so that you can get that extra currency. You don't have to look it up and work out what it is. It will show up right here for you in the map. So I appreciate that. That has made it a lot easier for me, so I don't have to look that up. I just know through the game. And that's something that I've said quite a bit when I have tried games without looking anything up, is that there's often things that we don't notice if we are avid game players that are missing from the game to instruct us as to what to do. A lot of us play a lot of games. We know what to do based on experience in other games, and most of them run in a similar way. But if you just start a game, like PvP, when I started this game, I didn't notice. I didn't notice it at all. I didn't know it was a thing. I found out through talking with other players who mentioned it, and then I could look it up. But some things are not obvious through the game and need to be looked up in order to be understood. And the fact that they have now added the highlight into that warp menu is something I very much appreciate, because now the game is telling me where the highlight is rather than elsewhere. So thank you for that one. I appreciate that. After years of only being able to flip forward through vendors lists, we finally got that back button in. Yes, I noticed that one too. I love it. It's very handy. And frankly, my natural inclination when I went too fast past one was to tap that button to go back. And now it simply does so. So thank you. I like that one a lot. Thank you. 2024 has been a year of exploration, and the gratitude we have for this community support goes off the charts. Well, thank you. And now for what's to come. This is the part I am very, very curious about. There are plenty of exciting updates to look forward to, because we've been hard at work planning many changes for improvements to DCUO. Okay? For example, we're overhauling the renown system to be far more inclusive. Interesting. Beginning with our next big story arc, all players will earn renown when defeating bosses in new instanced content. So instanced, I believe, is a load in, not an open world. So that's interesting. So if you defeat a boss in a load in relevant to the new, he's saying story arc, I'm guessing that's something akin to an episode, um, you will be receiving renown regardless of whether you are in elite. So I do appreciate that. Where on the US server it's quite easy to get into an elite run, it is also easy for some people to get booted out of those. But it is quite easy to get into an elite run on the US server. As you start going further back through the consoles, it becomes more and more difficult to do so. Particularly on Switch, not because people aren't willing, but because we often get booted. So we load into it, then get kicked out, and then have to try to get back in and often can't. So Switch is an interesting one, and it will be nice to potentially run solos and duos that are not elite and defeat a boss and be able to earn renown that way. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I do like it to be more inclusive for people who aren't able to get into the elite runs, especially because there are some people who are elite players who have leveled their characters to a really high degree. And I completely understand people who have done so not being willing to play with people who have not done the same. But by the same token, you can run elite with characters that are not highly leveled, not CR, but not highly leveled in skill points. Don't have your artifacts all the way up. Don't have your ideal ally, or maybe don't have your ally leveled to where it could be maximum. And you can run the elite. Like, the elite is not as difficult as it sounds by the word elite. I run it with characters who are not quite built yet, especially on PlayStation US, because PlayStation US, I haven't been playing long enough to level my characters. So it is not that hard. It is not, you can absolutely do it. But there are some people who will not play with people who are doing that. So if you are running elite with a character who is not ideal and people are booting you, this would at least give you the opportunity to earn renown and not have to deal with that issue. So I appreciate that. I'm assuming, I mean, there's probably going to be more information. Let's read through it and see what he says first, because I'm going to make a lot of assumptions otherwise. All players will earn renown when defeating bosses in new instanced content. The difficulty setting will determine the rate at which you earn. Okay. This will allow aspiring players to gain access to elite gear, as well as engagement in the Affinity mods system. I like this. I'm curious to see what the difference will be. So people who are running elite are obviously going to be able to get into the elite gear much faster because they're earning renown at a higher rate, whereas the people who are running normal content or event content are going to get it at a slower rate, but they still are able to get access. I like this change. I feel it's appropriate. I think it's allowing players who have the issue of not being able to run elite because people are not letting them. It's going to allow them to be able to access elite gear.
I am so sorry about Mr. Tweets. He will not be quiet. But this also helps them in that if people are able to run content that is not elite but receive access to the elite gear, gaining renown, they will be slightly more tempted to purchase the currency so that they can buy the elite gear that they now have access to.
So I kind of like this. I think this is a fair change. I'm not upset about it. I don't think it's going to hit anyone so hard that they're going to be upset, I hope. And it still means if you're running elite, you're going to get access to the elite gear much faster. So I appreciate that. I like this change. Further, we are thrilled to announce that our battle-tested players who defeat new elite bosses will now earn exclusive R&D recipes, which will allow the crafting of elite weapons, neck, ring, and utility belt items. So that's interesting. So that means there's going to be new items available only to the people who are running the elite content. So renown is becoming something that is not elite exclusive, but they're adding some things to give that elite run an exclusive an exclusivity. I don't mind that as well. I'm fine with it, even if I'm not running elite. I don't care if other players have access to that's fine with me. Creating these items will also have new feats attached. Oh, now I want them. I love catching feats. Okay. I'm fine with those. If anyone has issue with those, please let me know, because I'm curious what the issue would be. But those, I think that's a good change. We are also excited to be launching a brand new event system to centralize your gameplay experience. This will improve event communication and accessibility. You'll be able to select content, view progress, and examine rewards. I'm confused about what this means. So during event communication, hang on. We're also excited to be launching a brand new event system to centralize your gameplay experience. This will improve event communication and accessibility. So at the moment, I don't see an issue with event communication. I mean, we're given a banner every time a new event comes out that gives us the information, which they are doing very well. They have the banner come up all the time to let us know what's available at the vendor, what the event is. So I have no issue with the communication. I'm curious what this is going to be. You'll be able to select content, view progress, and examine rewards. This confuses me also. We can already select our content for an event. We can view our progress by looking at currency accumulation, whether or not an event is loot locked. So if, like, I've completed the La Fleas alert, that means it's loot locked. It has a little red symbol to let me know, so I'm aware that I've completed that. I also can look up my feats and see them in a list. I will say I think the feats list could be a little bit more streamlined. I think that having them separated the way that they are, but under headings so that we can search a particular heading would be nice, but I don't think that's what they're referring to here. I don't know. And it says view progress and examine rewards. Can we not already examine our rewards? I would like to know what this means. It's very vague and seems to be telling me I'm going to be able to do things that I can already do. So maybe it's going to be something akin to the marketplace where I could do everything in the marketplace that I needed to, but now I like it more. It's a little bit easier to navigate. The headings are better. The style I like a bit more too. I'm a fan of what they've done there with the marketplace. I will say initially I had the reaction of, don't change the things I'm used to, but now that I'm used to this, it's fine. So I like that. So maybe this is something akin to that. I'm not sure. This event system will also serve as a launch pad for a major new edition called Campaign 2025. This new annual campaign will offer players the chance to complete multiple events throughout the year to earn mega prizes that we know you'll love. Stay tuned for more details. So, a campaign, I'm wondering if this is something they're going to be putting in that is basically an event that they put in, but I'm guessing with limited currency because they seem to be in favor of limiting the currencies. So you must complete that campaign to earn the currency for that campaign to pay for these specific items that will never be available again. And I bet you those items become available again. I don't know. I'm reading a lot into something here. He is being quite vague about it, which is probably smart, but you know, I don't know how to feel. I need more information. And also mega prizes that we know you'll love. I'm so curious about that because saying that you know we'll love something is a big thing to say. You know, better not be prizes we've already had either. I guess we'll see. Stay tuned for more details. But we're just getting started. Other features that we're exploring include account-wide cash sharing. Thank you! Yes, please. I have never experienced it myself, but I know how many people have asked for it. And when I first started playing, I was saying, why can't we do that? That's stupid. This is my account, my characters. Why isn't my cash universal for them? So this I like. Thank you very much. Very happy about that. I hope others are as well. I can't see anyone being against that in particular, but I believe that the issue originally was that correct me if I'm wrong on this. This is something I heard from other players, so I could be mistaken. But I believe that originally there was universal cash. Then people were selling accounts off somehow. And then they did this so that people couldn't successfully sell off the accounts the way that they were. I'm not entirely sure. I don't have the information, but I think this is going back to how it originally was. I could be wrong. But regardless, if it's going back or a new feature, I am very happy with this. I do think that, you know, as a player, this is my account. These are my characters. I should be able to share my cash with them. Like, I like this. This is a good choice. Heroes and villains coming together in cross-faction leagues. Yes! I have been saying for such a long time that I find it frustrating when you cannot group with a villain or group with a hero. The opposite. Whichever one you're playing, you can't group with the other, especially in open worlds where we're all following the exact same mission line. And the newer content, honestly, we're all following the same mission. They don't create different storylines for the villains and the heroes any longer. That is long gone. And I feel that we should be able to group. I'm hoping that along with this cross-faction league, it includes and means that we can queue up with villains and heroes together for things. Because it frustrates me that I can't do that. I really want to be able to do that. And I feel like we should be able to, particularly if the storyline that we're following is the same for both of us. You know, if the open world is exactly the same story for everybody, why can't we group?
Yeah, you did already mention all of that.
Anyway, not that that's exactly what's said here, but I'm hoping it's going that way. Private queues, removing restrictions on group sizes. Yes! Oh my goodness! I am so happy about that. I often want to load into things like the raids. The raids, you need 8 people at the moment. Please tell me we can do it with 4. Because getting 4 people together is not too hard. You know, if we can load into them with 4, that would be great. Oh, I'm so happy. Oh, please. I can't wait to see how that works. Okay. Improvements to the Knockout Revive gameplay, and much, much more. What is improvements to the Knockout Revive? Because originally Knockout Revive was your character was knockout and revival could occur anytime during that gameplay, right? You didn't have a time limit. But now there's a time limit. If an improvement on it means removing the time limit, I will be really happy with that. Because I find that really, I don't know, it decreases the fun for people who can't get up. You know, they can't get back in, they're not going to enjoy the experience, they're stuck there waiting. What's the purpose of that? It's less fun. That's all I can think of, right? So I really hope that improvements to the Knockout Revive means time limit is gone. Please remove the time limit. I find that really annoying. But, I mean, some other people may have a reason that the time limit is there and appreciate it. I'm not sure. Guys, if you have an opinion, let me know, because I'm very curious on what people think of this. Also, it also says, and much, much more. I'm curious what the more is. You know? It's something that Multi always says. There's this and more. And I'm like, what's the more? But I never find out. Okay. Also worth noting that we see deeper gameplay potential in DCUO's summonable entities, allies, pets, sidekicks, henchmen, etc. And we'll be looking into their utility, progression, and overall UX. I am a little nervous about that because if it's going to mean that we're going to be having to build up our henchmen and our sidekicks rather than their skills just being preset, that's a lot of effort to put into them. So I'm hoping that, I mean, we already have to build up our allies. I'm curious with the pets because pets we can actually get tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. I would love it if they put something in game whereby I can level up my tier 1 to a tier 3 eventually, or something of the like. I think that would be kind of cool because it's already something that exists in the game. But if you're going to take the sidekicks and the henchmen and make it so that we have to level them in some way, I might be a little frustrated about that. Unless, of course, their baseline where they start is where they have already started now, and we can level them higher than that in some way. I'm very curious. I guess we'll just have to see. I mean, that is just my own thinking. I don't know what he means. He is just saying, we see potential in the summonable entities, and we're looking into their utility, progression, and overall UX. So I'm reading a lot into that. I'm making guesses. I don't know. And he certainly doesn't say anything about that specifically, but you know, we can make up conclusions that have nothing to do. Never mind. Future story arcs. Every new adventure starts with a chapter 1. The era of episodes has come to an end. But that doesn't mean we're erasing their existence. You'll continue to find both episodes and future chapter releases coexisting in gameplay as story arcs. So they're going to change our episodes to story arcs. Because it says you'll continue to find both episodes and future chapter releases coexisting in-game as story arcs. So are they both going to be called story arcs from now on? I don't know how I feel about that because I just got, some of the episodes memorized and I don't want to get confused. But I am curious about these chapter releases. I think the fact that they're calling it something different from episodes means that they're going to be quite different. You may be asking why future storyline expansions won't be called episodes anymore. That's exactly what I'm wondering. And that's because we have big plans to release multi-part narratives highly focused on delivering compelling and compassionate storytelling. Okay. Interesting. These types of stories aren't meant to be episodic, and so the idea of chapters making up each new story arc conceptualized. Okay, so these are meant to be narratives that continue on through, let's call it episodes for what we understand. Multiple episode releases are going to follow the same story arc, and thus they will be called chapters instead. I'm wondering if this is a way out of having so much content releasing per episode, and if they do chapters, they can release small snippets over a shorter period of time. So, here is an open world. Here is a solo for the storyline. A couple of weeks later, here is the duo for that storyline. Here is the alert for that story, So they can do it in smaller snippets rather than releasing a large amount at once. I'm very curious. That might just be me that's probably just me. Okay, it's probably not what they're talking about. I don't know. We're putting our foot forward to bolster our roots as to why we're fans of comic books. We're putting our foot forward to bolster our roots as to why we're fans of comic books. That is word vomit, is it not? We like comic books and we're going to do comic booky things. That's what they're saying. I think that might just be a sentence of word vomit that's trying to make it seem like we love comic books, and so the reason we are doing all of this is because we love comic books, just like you, So that seems like an unnecessary sentence there. An odd, unnecessary sentence. I'm very happy if the people who are developing this game now are fans of comic books, because this is a game based off of comic books. But I don't understand what any of that sentence means. Okay. Without going too much into detail, DCUO's next story arc will be the darkest yet, in a 4-part mystery adventure, starting with Chapter 1 in late January. Okay, a couple of things here. First thing, I did not expect anything to be coming out in January. I honestly thought there would be quite a large learning curve and a large gap of time in which they needed to find their footing. January is soon. And I'm a little excited about that. But I will say, saying that this is a 4-part mystery adventure makes me wonder, how is that going to work if Chapter 1 is coming out in January, let's say? This could be done in multiple ways. We could be receiving something that is very similar to an episode, whereby we have an open world, we have load-ins that go along with this storyline. But my guess would be that they are going to be doing less content with more frequency, because a 4-part mystery means that that's 4 separate releases, and at the moment episodes are releasing 2 a year, so we'd be doing 2 years to get through this content. I think that's unlikely. I think what may happen, and keep in mind, my speculation only, I have no proof, I'm just reading this and then thinking, and this is just what I am speculating could happen, may not be the case, but I suspect that probably the storyline is going to be a little bit of narrative presented to us in some way, whether that's an open world or a mission in the worlds that already exist, like a mission in Gotham or in Metropolis, maybe, I don't know. And then potentially, hey, go into this particular load-in, and I'm curious if they would maintain like the way that we currently do, solo, duo, alert, raid, or if they will, randomly do, this is the raid that's happening for this part of the storyline, next part of the storyline, you're in an alert, next part is a duo, I'm curious, but I think that this seems like to me, and I'm just guessing here, seems like
yeah, prepare for her to repeat herself.
We're probably going to get a little bit of something happening in the game, whether it's an open world, a storyline in a section of the world that already exists, something new to load into, I don't know, along with a particular load in for the purposes of carrying the narrative, which if it's 4-part, I'm hoping that means the releases are going to be at least for a year, because I would like to get to the end of this narrative in 1 year, but I'm hoping it's more frequent than that, and I'm very curious about it. They have also provided us a couple of images, and I will say I do like that they're saying this is the darkest storyline yet. It's hard to explain. I love a dark aesthetic. I love things dark. I love things creepy. I think they look cool.
Oh, yes, I think we all love when things look cool. Is it because you know you're going to get coal in your stocking?
I think they look cool. But dark narratives depends how far they go, because some things make me uncomfortable. And we're just gonna have to see, I guess. But the little sneak peek, it says take a look at a couple of sneak peeks from the art team. So there's 2 images there that future Laura can provide for you. To support the weight of this new level of storytelling, we are also excited to introduce a brand new section on our website called Story Blogs. Story Blogs will be an extension to the stories untold in DCUO, whether it be a deep dive in lore, side stories, prequels, or teasers. It will have it all. Keep an eye out for the first one as we get closer to the holidays. So this is something I'm not sure how to feel about, right? Because this is making it so that rather than everything being self-contained in the game, which is what I like to be able to get into a game, learn everything about what I'm doing through that gameplay. This is going off elsewhere. It's intentionally taking us elsewhere to find out more information. Now, if this information is unnecessary for the storyline of the gameplay and it's just extra for our enjoyment, I'm good with that. But if I don't understand something going on in the storyline of the game itself and have to go here to understand what they're talking about, that I'm not going to be very happy about. Because I don't think that people who choose to play a game should also have to go in other places to find this sort of information. A narrative of the storyline. Finding information about what our stats can do, what the best builds are, things like that, I understand. Going to find the storyline so that it makes sense to us, I don't. I think that's silly. Tell us everything we need to know in the game, because that's what I'm trying to do, is play the game to enjoy the story. So, remains to be seen. This may well just be, it sounds like untold extra side stories or deep dives, right? That's what they're describing here. Prequels and teasers. If that is the truth, and if I play the game without looking any of that up and the game storyline makes sense, I'm happy with that. If it doesn't, though, I'm not going to be particularly happy about that. People should not have to externally search for information about the storyline of a game in order to understand what's happening in front of them when they play. No. So let's hope that's not the case. I do find this interesting, though, and I'm wondering if this means we've got some comic booky people in the dev. I mean, it sounds like we do already from what they've said, but some nice comic booky people in the devs who are like grabbing from the comics and going to write down the narrative of what they're actually using and why they're using it and how they're doing it. I think that would be an interesting read. But it's not for everyone, and no one should be forced to have to go there in order to understand what they're playing. You know? All right. Oh, I'm nearly at the end. We'd like to thank you all again for an incredible year. Again, did they thank us before? Maybe at the start of this thing I've read? I don't know. We'd like to thank you all again for an incredible year. While the team has lots of new faces, we've also experienced countless learnings. So all of the new faces have learned a lot? Is that what we're saying? About DC or just in general? Because I've learned a lot of things that have nothing to do with DC. Interesting sentence choice there, sir. 2025 is going to be a thrill ride for DCUO, and we're grateful that you're along for the rush. Andre Emerson, executive producer. Okay, so thrill ride for DCUO sounds good. All of these things sound interesting. Some sound quite vague. The thing that I am most curious about, though, is what they're referring to with the new chapters rather than episodes, because I will be very disappointed if a story arc, as they are calling it, takes a year. I would be glad if it's within a year rather than 2, because at the moment, with 2 releases of episodes per year, and this kind of replacing that, I'm hoping it's not going to be of similar timing. But I am encouraged by the fact that I was expecting the next episode release to be April, May. I was not expecting January release of anything. So that is quite encouraging. And that also means that there's going to be information about what we're going to see in the future in January for me. I will be able to see what the game is doing and see where it's going based off of what's happening in January, because that's going to be the first step in their new story arc style. So I am someone who very much enjoys gameplay following a story. I even will play something really casually. I don't know how many watch my other channel. There's not a lot on there, but you can see that there are some occasions where I play a game just for the storyline. You know? So if there's a really good narrative in this, I'm going to probably enjoy that. If it's going to be something that releases in smaller snippets, but more frequently, I will be happy with that as long as we get through a narrative relatively quickly. I did say a year, but that is just, I would rather not be 2 years. Honestly, if a narrative goes longer than 6 months, I don't know how I'm going to feel, because I don't like waiting that long to find out what's going to happen. I'm just gonna have to suck it up, really, aren't I? So I'm curious about a lot of things to do with that. It is the thing I'm most looking forward to seeing what they do. Though I will say I am mildly nervous about the sidekicks and henchmen that they were talking about. I'm not so nervous about the pets, because I'm good with that being changed in some way. I'm good with the allies being changed in some way. We already have to level them. It already takes effort and time for those. It takes time and effort to get access to the particular pet you want. I will say on the US server, if I tried, I could probably do it in a day. But any other console, it's going to decrease in the likelihood of you being able to do it. EU has substantially less players. Xbox even more so. Switch is almost dead. Almost dead. Not quite, but, you know, the lag is not helping and it's not getting fixed up, and it would be a great benefit to anyone playing DC on the Switch if Nintendo released a console that was more capable of running this game. Because it's not really DC's fault that it's lagging like this. So it's not, honestly, it's probably not a game that should have been released on the Switch, but now that it has been, I love my Switch characters and I want to be able to play them. So one in particular. Let's all, everyone on Switch, let's just hope a console comes out that's strong enough to handle this game. Okay, but yeah, so there's a lot of interesting notes in there. Some of it is probably quite intentionally vague. Some of the sentences seemed like word vomit. That one about bolstering their love of DC. I mean, we are putting our foot forward to bolster our roots as to why we're fans of comic books. That's word vomit, is it not? It's just, I don't understand why it's written that way. It almost says nothing. It just says they're fans of comic books. That's the only part of it that makes sense. We're putting our foot forward to bolster our roots, okay, as to why we're fans of comic books. I think I understand what he was trying to say, but that sentence is just odd to me. Would it not be easier to say, because it follows this, these types of stories aren't meant to be episodic, and so the idea of chapters making up each new story arc conceptualized. Because we are all fans of the DC comics, we want to input what we love about them in our gameplay. Would that have not been a better sentence? It sounds like they're actually doing something, but also is still just as vague. We don't know what that means, but at least it makes sense. So this gentleman has an interesting way of writing, which is fine. I'm sure if he continues to release letters and things, I will get used to it. But it's nice for them to actually be talking to us about something, I will say. But I'm excited and nervous. Is there a word for that? Excited, nervous. Nerve-sighted? We're going with nerve-sighted. I am nerve-sighted about this. And I'm curious what you guys think. So, let me know. And I hope you guys have a good one.